There's a strange truth nobody tells you about reality. It isn't as solid as it looks. The chair under you, the walls around you, the phone in your hand, it all feels fixed, permanent, immovable. But at the most fundamental level, science has shown that matter isn't locked in stone. It's patterns of energy, swirling, flickering, waiting to be observed into form. And here's the wild part. You are not separate from those patterns. You are woven into them. The way you look at reality literally decides what shows up next. That's not just spiritual fluff. Quantum entanglement proves it. When two particles become entangled, distance no longer matters. Change one, the other responds instantly. What if your desires, your dreams, your future self are already entangled with you right now? I know what it feels like to want something so badly it hurts. To feel the ache of waiting for the text, waiting for the money to hit, waiting for proof that it's working. You start wondering if maybe you're broken, if maybe manifestation works for everyone else but you. That waiting energy is heavy. It's like walking through fog, trying to grab a horizon that keeps moving further away. But here's the shift. What if the waiting is the illusion? What if the timeline where you're already living your dream is not out there in the future, but entangled with you here and now, waiting for you to collapse into it? This isn't about thinking harder or forcing belief. It's about understanding the mechanics of how entanglement and observation link you to realities that already exist. You'll see why trying to chase your dream keeps it further away, and how stepping into resonance pulls it toward you instantly. And the best part? Once you get this, you'll realize you've always been closer than you think. Let's zoom into what's actually happening beneath the surface. When physicists studied particles at the quantum level, they found something bizarre. Matter doesn't sit in one place, waiting for us to discover it. It exists as probabilities, waves of possibility. Only when an observer interacts with it does the wave collapse into one definite outcome. That's the observer effect. Now, here's where most people misunderstand it. They think, so if I just think about what I want, it should show up, right? But thought alone is like spinning the dial on an old radio without ever stopping to lock onto a station. You catch static, glimpses of music, noise mixed with signal. The universe doesn't respond to loose thoughts. It responds when you embody a frequency long enough that it stabilizes into coherence. Think of yourself as a radio. Every version of you, the one struggling to pay bills, the one living in abundance, the one waiting for love, the one thriving in it, is broadcasting on a different station. Those stations already exist. You don't create them from scratch. You tune into them. And tuning isn't mental effort. It's alignment of your nervous system, emotions, and body with the signal you want to lock onto. This is why affirmations often fall flat. You can repeat, "I am wealthy," 100 times, but if your body is broadcasting anxiety, your field is still tuned to the station of lack. The entangled version of you living abundance is right there, broadcasting crystal clear music, but your dial is a few notches off. So the key isn't to shout louder into the static. It's to gently shift into the frequency where the music is already playing. That's what embodiment is, carrying the state in your breath, posture, heartbeat, and choices until your entire system becomes a transmitter of that reality. When you understand entanglement this way, manifestation stops being mysterious. You're not conjuring something that doesn't exist. You're locking onto the broadcast of the reality that's already tied to you. The miracle is simply noticing you've been holding the dial between stations and learning how to click it into place. But here's where things get tricky. Most people have been told a lie about what actually makes the dial move. They try harder, they force positivity, they grit their teeth and hope it's enough. And in doing so, they unknowingly keep themselves locked in static. Because the truth is, the dial doesn't move the way you think it does. So what's the myth? It's the idea that you can force the dial into place with sheer mental effort. That if you just visualize harder, script longer, or think positive enough times, the universe has to give in. But here's the problem. When you're gripping that tightly, your actual broadcast is desperation. The dial isn't moving to the new station. It's stuck amplifying static. Think of it like this. You've got your radio in hand, and you're spinning the knob. You can hear fragments of the song you want, but there's static layered over it. Instead of relaxing and gently fine-tuning, you start pressing your ear against the speaker, twisting the dial too fast, telling yourself, "Why won't this just come through already?" That tension is exactly what scrambles the signal. Let me ground this with something you've probably lived. Picture this. You've sent a message to someone you care about. Maybe it's a romantic interest. Maybe it's a friend you're hoping to hear from. You hit send, and then silence. Minutes feel like hours. You keep checking your phone, refreshing, scanning for the little dots that never appear. Your chest tightens, your thoughts race, your body is buzzing with a low-level panic. That's a classic example of the dial stuck on static. Outwardly, you're wanting a reply. But the frequency you're embodying, the nervous tension, the insecurity, the hypervigilance, is tuned to lack, absence, and waiting. The entangled version of you who is already at ease, already in a flowing conversation, already receiving love, that station is right there. But because your system is blasting not enough into the field, you can't hear the music. Here's the myth bust. Manifestation isn't about thinking harder. It's about becoming quieter, safer, more attuned. The dial moves when you regulate into coherence, not when you push against the silence. If you've ever had the experience of finally setting your phone down, taking a walk, letting go, and then suddenly that reply pops up, that wasn't coincidence. That was your signal shifting, the static clearing, the dial clicking into place. The moment you stop radiating urgency, the reality entangled with your calm, secure self becomes accessible. So the trick isn't adding more pressure, it's learning to soften enough for the song to come through. And that leads to the next layer most people overlook. Before you can embody the station, your system has to feel safe enough to hold the frequency without scrambling it. Because here's the secret. Safety is the gateway to coherence, and coherence is what makes the music play. If you've ever wondered why your manifestations feel so shaky, here one day, gone the next, it usually traces back to one thing, your nervous system. You can't transmit a steady broadcast from a jittery, overcharged body. Safety is the power source behind the signal. Think of a radio again. If the wiring inside is frayed, if the power cord is sparking, the signal cuts in and out. You might hear the melody for a second, then lose it to static. That's what happens when your body is running on survival mode. You're technically tuning, but the system isn't stable enough to hold the frequency. This is why no amount of affirmations can override chronic anxiety. It's not that you're broken, it's that your body is still broadcasting survival first, desire second. The good news? Safety can be cultivated. And when you learn how to shift your physiology into coherence, the dial not only clicks into the right station, it stays there. Let's try something simple right now. Close your eyes if you can. Place one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly. Breathe in gently through your nose for a count of 4, hold for 2, and then exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 6. Do that 3 times. Notice how your shoulders start to drop, how your heart slows just a little. Now as you breathe, imagine your chest as a soft radio receiver. Each inhale gathers scattered static. Each exhale clears the channel. After a few breaths, feel into the idea that your heart and brain are syncing, almost like 2 instruments harmonizing, finding the same key. That harmony is coherence. That's the state where your signal becomes clean. And here's the magic. Coherence doesn't just feel good inside you. It radiates out. When your nervous system is calm, the field around you stabilizes. Suddenly, the entangled version of you who already lives in the reality you want has a clear channel to connect through. The music of that timeline streams in without interruption. So instead of asking, how do I think the right thoughts? Start asking, how safe does my body feel in holding this vision? That's the real test. Because only a regulated system can broadcast the signal long enough for reality to click into place. Now that we've built the foundation of safety, we can step into a deeper shift, the one that moves you from chasing temporary states into actually becoming the person who belongs on that station. And that's where the entire game changes. Here's the trap many people fall into once they discover coherence. They treat it like a trick. They breathe, they regulate, they drop into calm. And yes, it works. They feel the shift, their signal clears, and little synchronicities start showing up. But then life throws a curveball. An unexpected bill lands, or someone doesn't respond the way they hoped, and suddenly the state collapses. The radio slips back into static. This is why manifestation can feel inconsistent, because a state is temporary. It's like catching a melody for a moment but not knowing the lyrics. You hum along, you lose the tune, you find it again. That fluctuation is natural, but it doesn't anchor the new reality. The real shift happens at the level of identity. When you stop trying to get into a state and start being the person who naturally lives on that frequency, the dial locks in. You're not just visiting the station, you belong there. Think of it like learning a new language. At first, you memorize words, phrases, responses. It feels awkward, fragile. But over time, the language rewires your brain. It stops being something you do and becomes something you are. You dream in it. You think in it. Identity is fluency. The same is true with your dream reality. If abundance is just a state you dip into during meditation, you'll lose it the moment life tests you. But if abundance becomes who you identify as, the way you walk, breathe, choose, and expect, then no external static can shake the signal. The broadcast continues even when the environment challenges it. This is where entanglement shows its full force. The version of you living your dream life isn't just sitting on some distant timeline. It's entangled with your present identity. The more you embody that identity now, the faster the two versions collapse into one. The field doesn't need you to be perfect. It just needs you to choose which you're fluent in. So instead of asking, how do I feel abundant today? Start asking, who am I when abundance is my native language? That subtle reframe is the difference between temporary glimpses and permanent lock-in. But here's the mind-bending part, and it's where we're headed next. Identity isn't just personal. Each identity lines up with a completely different timeline, already playing out. And once you see how to step into the station where your dream self is broadcasting, you'll understand why shifting timelines is less like climbing a mountain and more like changing the channel. Every identity carries its own timeline. Imagine it this way. Each station on the radio isn't just playing one song. It's broadcasting an entire genre, an entire world of music. When you switch stations, you don't just hear a different melody. You enter a whole new atmosphere, mood, and story. That's exactly how timelines work. The you who feels small, insecure, always waiting for the next shoe to drop, that identity locks you into one timeline, a station full of static and scarcity songs. But the you who knows how to hold themselves differently, who chooses from abundance instead of fear, steps instantly into a parallel reality where opportunities are normal and flow is expected. The song changes, but more than that, the world around you harmonizes with it. Let me ground this with something real. Picture the pressure of money. Maybe a bill is due tomorrow and you don't know how it's going to get covered. Your chest is tight, your mind is racing, your body is broadcasting fear. In that moment, your identity is the person on the edge, scrambling, not enough. That identity automatically tunes you to the timeline where scarcity repeats itself. But what happens if, instead of gripping tighter, you pause, you breathe, you remember coherence? And then, here's the leap, you step into the identity of the version of you who is already stable, resourceful, supported. That doesn't mean you pretend the bill isn't real. It means you broadcast from the timeline where solutions already exist. You notice new options you couldn't see before. Maybe you recall someone who owes you money, or you stumble on an idea to create quick income, or support comes in from a direction you didn't expect. None of that could stream in when you were locked in the desperate station. But the moment your identity clicked into the abundant version of you, the whole station changed. This is why it's not about waiting for proof. Proof belongs to the timeline you choose. If you stay in the identity of struggle, the timeline will keep proving you right with more struggle. If you step into the identity of sufficiency, that timeline will prove you right with unexpected flow. The dial moves with identity, not hope. And here's the deeper realization. Timelines are not far away. They're all broadcasting simultaneously. Entanglement means the future version of you already exists, already humming with the song you want to hear. The question is simply, which broadcast will you allow yourself to become fluent in? Next, I'll show you how to practice this deliberately. Because tuning once isn't enough. You need tools to rehearse the identity until the station becomes second nature. Here's the truth. Identity doesn't shift because of one big moment. It shifts through rehearsal. Just like training your muscles or learning an instrument, you strengthen the signal by practicing it daily until it becomes automatic. You don't just tune the radio once and walk away, you keep the dial steady, keeping the station clear even when interference tries to creep in. So, how do you rehearse? Let me give you a toolkit you can start using today. Tool 1. Bridge statements. Instead of jumping from "I'm drowning in debt" to "I'm a millionaire," which your system will reject, you use bridge language. For example, "I'm learning what stability feels like," or "I'm starting to see money flow more easily." These statements act like smaller dials between the static and the full station. They move you gradually into coherence, which feels safer for your nervous system. Tool 2. Somatic anchors. Pick one physical gesture or posture that represents the identity you're calling in. Maybe it's standing taller, shoulders open, or touching your heart with a breath whenever fear comes up. Each time you feel old static, you return to that gesture. Over time, your body links the posture with the frequency until the two are inseparable. Tool 3. Environment echoes. Your outer world feeds your signal. Place small cues around you that reflect the identity you're rehearsing. It might be a photo, a song, a scent, even a sticky note with one phrase. Every time you see it, it reminds your system, this is the station I'm on now. The more echoes, the faster the identity stabilizes. Tool 4. Micro rehearsals. Don't wait for long meditation sessions. Use daily moments, walking, making coffee, brushing your teeth, to embody the identity. Ask yourself, how does the abundant me walk into this room? How does the confident me stir this cup? These little rehearsals build fluency faster than occasional big rituals. Now, when you combine these tools, you create a mini protocol. Start with a bridge statement, anchor it with a gesture, surround yourself with echoes, and rehearse in micro moments throughout the day. That's how identity stops being an idea and becomes second nature. And here's a question for you. Have you noticed the moment you stopped gripping, what you wanted finally showed up? Tell me your story in the comments. It might unlock someone else's leap. Because here's the deeper layer. Even with these tools, most people still hit 3 common traps that scramble the signal. And unless you know how to transmute them, you'll keep slipping back into static. Even with the best tools, there are 3 traps almost everyone falls into. They're sneaky because they feel logical, even responsible. But what they actually do is knock you off the station and throw you back into static. Let's break them down. The first is urgency. That tightening in your chest, the voice saying, it has to happen now or else. Urgency might motivate action in the short term, but in energetic terms, it's poison. It tells the field you're tuned to the station of lack, because urgency always carries the signal of not enough. Think of a radio. If you keep twisting the dial faster and faster, desperate to land on the right frequency, you'll never give it the stillness it needs to lock in. The way out of urgency isn't pretending you don't care. It's teaching your body to breathe, slow down, and realize the music is already playing. Urgency dissolves when you trust the broadcast hasn't gone anywhere. The second trap is split signals. This happens when you embody 2 conflicting frequencies at once. On the surface, you're saying, I want love, but underneath, you're broadcasting fear of rejection. Or you affirm abundance while secretly bracing for bills. The radio equivalent? 2 stations bleeding into each other. The chorus of one song mixing with the verse of another, creating noise instead of clarity. The solution isn't to suppress the hidden signal, but to bring it to awareness. Notice the contradiction, name it, and consciously choose which broadcast you want to amplify. Integration clears the bleed, so one song comes through strong. The third trap is over-control. This is the obsession with micromanaging every detail of how the manifestation should unfold. You script the timing, the method, the exact path, and in doing so, you choke the flow. A radio doesn't need you to rearrange the sound waves. It just needs you to tune and receive. Over-control is static disguised as discipline. The antidote is surrender, not in the sense of giving up, but in the sense of trusting the intelligence of the field to carry the music to you once you're tuned. You set the frequency. The how is not your job. When you start seeing these traps for what they are, they lose their grip. Urgency becomes presence. Split signals become coherence. Over-control becomes trust. And suddenly, the station plays louder and clearer than ever before. But here's the next challenge. How do you take all of this out of practice sessions and into ordinary life? When you're walking, eating, talking, scrolling? Because that's where the real fluency is tested. The biggest mistake people make with manifestation is treating it like a ritual that only happens on the meditation cushion or in a journaling session. But the field doesn't just read your energy when you're focused. It's reading you all the time. Your signal is streaming with every step, every bite, every conversation. The question is, are you broadcasting static or music in the ordinary moments? Think of it this way. If you only tune your radio for 10 minutes in the morning and then spend the rest of the day flipping through stations at random, the broadcast will sound inconsistent. But if you start weaving coherence into the most basic activities, your whole life becomes one continuous station. Take walking. Most people walk while lost in thought, hunched over, scrolling, or rushing. That's static energy. But what if you practiced walking as your dream self? Shoulders open, eyes up, pace steady, as if the reality you desire is already yours. That's not pretend. It's transmitting the station of confidence into the field with every step. Or eating. Scarcity shows up at the table too. Rushing, scrolling while you eat, barely tasting your food, all of that broadcasts disconnection. Instead, slow down. Taste each bite as if nourishment is overflowing. Your body registers abundance, and your signal stabilizes on that station. Even conversations are part of the broadcast. Notice how often you speak from lack. I can't afford that. I never have time. It always goes wrong. Those phrases are like scratching the dial into static. Instead, practice speaking as if the music is already playing. I'm finding ways to feel more supported. Things are opening up for me. I'm learning to enjoy this process. The words aren't fluff, they're frequency cues. And yes, even something like scrolling matters. Comparison, envy, irritation, that's all static. But if you catch yourself and shift into appreciation, noticing beauty, talent, or possibility, you're tuning into the abundance station while holding your phone. Here's the point. Manifestation isn't about a single big moment. It's about hundreds of small ordinary moments where you either reinforce static or stabilize music. Daily life is the practice room. Every action is rehearsal. But once you see that, a bigger question opens. If ordinary moments can shift the broadcast, what happens when you expand this frequency into entire domains of your life? Your relationships, your creativity, your health, even your sense of purpose. That's where the field really starts to bend. Once you start living coherence in the small, ordinary actions, the signal doesn't just stay small. It begins to ripple outward into every domain of your life, amplifying realities you never thought could shift. It's like moving from a pocket radio in your kitchen to a full surround sound system filling the entire house. The same station, but suddenly the music saturates everything. Let's start with relationships. When your broadcast is fear, neediness, or scarcity, your connections mirror that back. Miscommunication, distance, tension. But when you carry the frequency of safety and wholeness, relationships transform. You don't chase validation, you transmit it, and people feel it. The same partner, the same family, the same friends, but the station changes, and the harmony shifts. Then, there's creativity. Have you ever sat in front of a blank page, a canvas, or a project, and felt absolutely nothing? A frozen silence, like the radio turned off. That's a creative block, and it feels like one of the most painful stations to be stuck on. You want to push, to force, to drag inspiration out of yourself, but all that does is tighten the static. The shift comes when you stop broadcasting pressure and step into the identity of someone who is already in flow. Instead of asking, "Why am I blocked?" you ask, "How would the version of me who creates effortlessly sit here right now?" Maybe they'd breathe deeper. Maybe they'd move their body. Maybe they'd laugh at the blank page. The moment you align with that identity, the song starts again. Ideas drop in, words flow, brushstrokes feel alive. This ripple doesn't stop at art. Health responds too. Stress and static keep the body inflamed, tense, shut down. But coherence creates a physiological harmony where healing pathways open. Your body isn't separate from the broadcast. It is the broadcast. Each cell hears the music. And finally, purpose. When you're tuned to static, life feels random, meaningless, disconnected. But when your station is clear, purpose isn't something you chase. It's something you live into naturally. You find yourself drawn to the right people, opportunities, and directions without straining. Purpose is simply the music of your highest station expressing itself through action. This is the expansion. The same principle that helps you receive a text, handle money with ease, or clear creative blocks also scales up to every corner of your life. You're not just tuning a radio anymore. You're conducting an orchestra. But here's the ultimate leap. Beyond relationships, beyond creativity, beyond health, there's a dimension where all of this reveals its deepest meaning. And it's not just personal, it's spiritual. Up until now, we've been talking about tuning your own signal, walking, breathing, speaking, choosing in ways that stabilize the station of your dream reality. But there's another layer most people miss, because this isn't only about your personal frequency. There's a larger intelligence behind the music itself. Think about the radio again. You don't generate the broadcast. You don't sit in your room and invent the sound waves. The station already exists. The music is already in the air, flowing around you. All you do is tune in. The same is true with manifestation. You don't have to create the entire reality by yourself. You're partnering with a field that's already holding infinite possibilities. And this is where the paradox enters. The strongest thing you can do is surrender. Not surrender in the sense of giving up, but surrender in the sense of trusting that the music is already playing. You don't need to control the lyrics, or predict the next note, or conduct the entire orchestra. Your role is simply to align yourself so fully that the broadcast flows through you. This is why forcing never works. Force comes from the illusion that you're the one producing the music. Surrender comes from remembering you're the receiver. And when you relax into that role, the transmission amplifies beyond anything you could have scripted. There's something deeply spiritual in this. Because it means you're not separate from the intelligence that organizes galaxies, grows forests, spins atoms into form. That same intelligence is flowing through your breath, your heartbeat, your desires. What you long for isn't random. It's the music of the larger field calling you into resonance. When you stop gripping and allow, life starts feeling orchestrated. Synchronicities appear. The right person calls at the right time. Opportunities line up without strain. You feel guided, not because you're lucky, but because you're finally letting the larger broadcast move through you. So ask yourself, what happens when I stop treating manifestation as a personal battle and start treating it as a collaboration? What opens when I see myself not as the composer, but as the instrument? That's the leap. To recognize that aligning with your dream reality is less about creating from scratch and more about becoming transparent enough for the infinite station to sing through you. And when you live like that, the final realization lands that you were never far from your dream reality at all. You were always entangled with it, waiting for the moment you'd hear the music clearly. Now it's time to bring everything home. If you've made it this far, you already sense it. Reality is not fixed. It's fluid, alive, humming with infinite stations, all broadcasting at once. The version of you who is still waiting, doubting, chasing, that's just one station. The version of you already thriving, already loved, already abundant, that's another. And entanglement means you are linked to both. Which one becomes real depends on the signal you stabilize. You've seen how it works. Thoughts alone don't move the dial. Embodiment does. A nervous system regulated into safety does. Identity, practiced until it feels like your native language, does. Daily micro moments where you walk, eat, speak, and choose from the frequency you desire do. And above all, surrender does. Not the weak kind of surrender, but the powerful kind. Trusting that the music is already here, waiting for you to tune in. So let's bring it to one final image. Imagine holding an old radio in your hands. Static fills the room. Chaos, noise, interference. That's what most people live inside every day. But then, you turn the dial just slightly. The static clears, and suddenly a song emerges. Not faint, not far, but rich, layered, undeniable. You realize it was there all along. You just weren't tuned to hear it. That's your life. Your dream reality is not in the distance. It's already playing, right here, right now. The entangled version of you is calling, broadcasting on full volume. All you have to do is steady the dial, breathe into safety, and live as the person who belongs on that station. The moment you do, the music takes over. And maybe you've already felt it. Those flashes when life seemed to align, when something you longed for showed up the second you stopped gripping. That wasn't luck. That was proof that the field is listening, always. So I'll leave you with this. The music is playing. The station is yours. The only question is, will you tune in long enough to let it become your reality?